Okay, so I have a couple of thoughts to share, something really basic to kickstart the session. But yeah, as we probably all know, for long-term sustainability, ideally, you want to have a business model that runs in parallel to your proposal in your initiative. We see this often in social entrepreneurship, etc. But in a lot of your cases, the initiative starts answering a pain point of the community or an innovative idea, and it's not per se associated from the beginning with a business model, which makes it quite challenging to then evolve into a sustainable initiative from the financial point of view, at least. So yeah, this is integrating the revenue model with a mission-oriented value proposition like yours. It's not always so easy. So that's what we want to look at today. What are the other options? Are there alternative funding streams that can still help in these stages where you are and into continue working towards a stage where you can get a more solid partnership that facilitates your sustainability? Oh, yeah. So what is important and what we want to highlight with this session is that each venture has a really different set of characteristics in their proposal, but also in their team, in where they are set up, in where they are scaling, that include in itself different opportunities and different constraints and different objectives, of course. This impacts a lot your search for funding, and is what you should start, like the point from which you should start thinking. So to understand these elements of your initiative and how to best fit certain funding options, it's really important. So today we will talk about those to help you be even more aware about this that you already are, we hope. Okay, that said, we wanted to first show you the overview of the space where we are going to work. Here, I think Alberto is busy in making sure that there's a template for each of the initiatives, because we had that all nicely set up, but we have some people that joined in the last moment, but that's great. So as you see, each of you will have one of these color spaces, and this you have first template and then the second one. If you remember in the agenda, we're gonna first work on one space and then on the other. And what you see in the center is just the slides of the really quick overview of alternative sources of funding that we're gonna see before jumping into the workshop. I think I said what I already had to say. So in a bit more detail, this is going to be the first template that we're gonna use in the workshop. And we want to use it to show it to you before I start showing the overview, the really quick presentation of today, because we want you to keep in mind the questions that you have there while we are seeing the slides of the presentation. So we advise you to already start thinking while we are looking at different funding options, to already start thinking, okay, which of these financial tools or strategies are interesting or will be promising for us? Is it something we've considered already or not? Why would we choose this? And ultimately, maybe it's difficult to think in those terms already, but ultimately we want you to also answer what specific characteristics of your initiative you think are important to consider when choosing this financial strategy. We're gonna have time enough later on to work on this in the template in the workshop, but it's good if you keep the questions in mind while we go through the slides of the presentation. Okay, so all the promising is here. We're gonna jump into the overview of these financial tools and strategies. Let me check time. Okay, I'm only 2 minutes late, so it should be okay. Okay, so in a quick glance, we have many different, let's say, financial tools for mission-driven ventures or typical mechanisms that people use to get funding. But we wanted to make an overview of the usual suspects or the most common ones, the most achievable ones. Still, we have some that are really short-term oriented, or that are more short-term oriented, and they offer you the capital that you need initially, like it could have been the Designscapes grant to get started, and get you ready to get more serious amounts of money, or be more investment ready. So to be more mature, so that you can access investment from other type of mechanisms. Those are what we call long-term, and here we have less because it's definitely more complex, and they tend to be based on partnerships, or at least the ones we wanted to touch on today are those. And this is a long-term arrangement. It's what you want for sustainability as an initiative, of course, especially if you are not, if you're a proposal that doesn't generate value, or doesn't generate revenue on its own. It's not easy to be capitalized. But these also come with, these also come with an exchange on that you have to share equity and ownership over your initiative, of course. Now we start with the short terms. So the first two I think are super obvious and we all know them. First one is startup capital. So getting funding from an incubator that hosts you in their, back in the days it was in their building, but nowadays just in their online space or in the network, or an accelerator, or a company that is doing as incubator accelerator internally. So they're doing in-house venturing. A lot of for-profit companies are opening spaces in their investment fund for this type of things also. So what's interesting of this is that we have a really interesting network of social incubators across Europe. At some point I wanted to put here a lot of examples, but it was a bit overwhelming, so I will just share a list afterwards. But also don't forget that you don't have to apply to an incubator or an accelerator on its own, but there's also just all the funding and incubation programs that come detached from just being part of the incubator, let's say for a longer term. These are really similar to what I just mentioned, are really similar to the grants and challenges and competitions that we see out there that offer funding for those initiatives, like you solving or tackling a societal challenge, or just that are impact driven. Designscapes is an example of a really small type of funding, but there are really important, there are challenges and competitions that offer a really important sum in funding. Here you have a link, and you will see in all these slides that there are links for you to check later on, because you're going to continue having access to this presentation, and we have to do it quickly so we have more time for the workshop. But here you have a link to funding opportunities, or in terms of calls from Europe, that should have an overview. Then another instrument that is used, and we know that some of you have used it, we will be really interested later on in hearing your experiences on considering or using this. It's crowdfunding. So you have the additional benefit of this, of getting exposure, and also validating your idea with public, the people that you are asking the support from, and also building that community. Of course, it has some downsides, and there are different formats. You not always have to offer a product in return to the backup of people. Sometimes it's also debt-based or equity-based. So with solutions, or with proposals that tackle communities, it could be really interesting to do a hyper-localized round of crowdfunding, for example, among the neighbors, if they are invested in that service that you are offering. You have some examples of platforms here. There's the super famous ones like Indiegogo, but there's also really local and smaller ones, or some that are super focused on impact and social oriented proposals. And the advice here is to check something that is meaningful in your area. So maybe the bigger platforms are the last option in that way, in that sense. By the way, I forgot to say that we have space in all these slides for you to put comments if you've had experiences with any of these financial means or options. And you can do this at any point throughout the day, throughout the session and the workshop, in a post-it or however you want. Okay, so now you see that the frame is slightly green, and that's because we are moving into the longer term. Impact investment, it's also a super important funding mechanism to consider for initiatives like yours, especially now that the idea is that you are at replication or scaling stage. So maybe the options that we just seen, the short term, is something you've already used or you've already exhausted, and now you're looking for more sustainable investment. There's a quite robust network again in Europe of impact investment. You have here a couple of databases. So the Europe's database that you have there, and also an inventory from the European Venture Philanthropy Association. This is all about searching who could be the group that fits your initiative. Again, normally having someone in your network that has a contact or looking for people that are working really locally, it's a first advice in these cases. Also, we linked here a couple of reads to get started that are gonna expand more on what I just said. Gonna give you more tips on how to look at this. Then a bit more complicated to get, but also growing and also we see it often enough, is to manage to get funding from an angel investment. So in the impact investors, we are talking about organizations that this is what they do for a living, and angel investment is usually an individual, although there's groups of experts that come together to invest together into something. Here it's where having these people in your network or trying to grow your network so that you scout also angel investors, it comes really handy, because it's a more personal relationship that you establish that with the impact investors, that is still a bit of a business exchange. Because it's more personal, it's super important to find people that are really aligned with your values and mission, and with whom you can set realistic expectations of what they're gonna get in return. But it's quite complicated. This is one of those cases of which, if you're lucky to have this type of people in your network, to be able to grow your network, to acquire them, it's an option. But if not, it's something more difficult to find through Google, let's say. This is one of those pages that we've created also for any other source you want to highlight, any other source of funding that we are not touching on here and you think it's really important and really valuable. Also, I wanted to mention that I'm not going to talk today about any format or any tool for funding that is based on debt. And yeah, but there are many options out there also. Okay, so now green ribbon around this slide. This is long term. The really interesting setup that we see in terms of long-term sustainability for ventures like you, it's the public-private social partnerships. So these are joint ventures, and we have funding or commissioning or shared equity. There's different ways, but we have a private and a public partner joining in to finance an initiative, or maybe an initiative joining a public partner, etc. So an example that we wanted to briefly talk about here, and I'm running out of time, so I will be really brief. It's City Barge, that some of you may know or may be familiar with the name, was one of the initiatives funded by the Sunscapes in the first and second round. They managed from the beginning to have a partnership with the province South Holland of the Netherlands, so that's a public organization, and private companies such as the company that takes care of waste management in the Netherlands, that is Avalex. So by receiving quite important sums of money from both companies and sharing with them, I think equity is the deal, they could develop, or they are being able to develop their technology that is super, super expensive. The grant of Designscapes for them was just a small amount that they could use for design and service design development. Okay, and I finish here. There's also the option of direct public commissions, and an example of this, just that a department of the government or a ministry that is looking, for example, for reinforcing the healthcare in some way, get it shows, or like you get in contact with them and basically pitch your proposal to integrate it in their public service. So this is a bit like acquiring the innovation you are not able to produce yourself. That was something we see in private companies a lot, but done by public institutions. It's another type of partnership in a way, but it's more a direct commission. And again, space for you to say later on through the day. You have the template here. Okay, now I'm in front of a empty frame. I don't know if here there's an issue, Alberto.
Yeah, I think you can just pass on to the next step.
It's the breather, the breather I was needing.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I ran out of time there, but this is the overview that we had for today. It's nice with Miro that you still have it there. You can still check it throughout the time that we have for the workshop. And I think this is when I shut up and Alberto explain to us what we do.
Well, so if you had time, I would say let's look first. Maybe you can go back.
Yes, sorry. Yes.
I'm sorry. You can go back another slide, maybe, Alicia. And then
here.
I would ask you first to fill in this template. So after this overview, you may have thought already of the questions that are down below there. So I would first ask you to go to the main, let's say, Miro board that I now share with you in the chat. Please let me know if you can all open it. In the meantime, I'm making a breakout room for Push Design Lab. So basically for Julia and Hannah, if you want to quickly discuss among yourselves while you fill in the templates. And for the others, I think, well, you can stay here with us in the main room. So if we are all there, let me see, I now have too many screens here. Okay, I see.
Yeah, you should all be able to find your template with your name, under your name.
So what we would ask you is to look at template number 1. And now in 10 minutes, we would like you to basically answer those 4 questions. And then afterwards, we will divide you in 2 breakout rooms, since we have, in the end, a good number of people, where basically the goal would be to just share your answers and your insights and try to learn as much as possible from the experiences and choices that each of the other initiatives in the group have put down in their own templates. So I would say first, we give you these 10 minutes. I now send Julia and Hannah to a room.
Yeah, and I'll stop sharing the screen for now.
And yeah, so we let you alone for these 10 minutes.
We meet you back in 10 minutes.
Time is up, and we would go on to the next step. Can you please, Alicia, maybe keep on sharing your screen?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the presentation. Yes.
Yes. So the next slide. What we have now, as we said before, we will split you up in breakout rooms where the goal would be to share your experiences. So if you go the following one, Alicia, the goal will be to indeed Everybody will summarize their answers from template 1 and share it with the other. We thought, as an example, something like you chose this and this tool because your initiative has this or that characteristics. And then also, for example, name the opportunities and obstacles that you foresee for your initiative in taking that path. And while the others, so as a second step, while the others share their insights, please think already of these two questions. So what are interesting aspects that might be nice also for your project to take into consideration? These may be insights or connections that you have, or even things that like you think that your project is totally different, or anything that unexpected that you hear from others' choices and experiences with this. And then finally, what are things that you would like to ask more about? Because then as a second part of this breakout room section, let's call it, we will try to have then an internal discussion within the group. So asking each other basically more about what you found interesting from their answers. So now I will assign you to rooms. Let me do this. Okay.
Also worth mentioning is that Alberto and I will be in different breakout rooms. So if there's any other doubts, we will be there to answer.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Great. So the rest of the team, the rest of the group are also coming. I will meanwhile share again my screen and we continue. Play. Yeah, Alberto tells me that I can start introducing the template. Sure. So we're going to jump into template 2 that it follows a similar structure and it just answers to the idea of looking at the same type of questions after the conversation we just had. So if there's any main insights of the conversation or new things you were not considering, now you can review your initial thoughts and update that. So the first part is based on what we've talked about in the discussion just now. What would be your new or your upgraded or your same approach to find a next funding tool or financial strategy for your initiative? And then also what are the, write down your main takeaways or next steps at this stage. This includes what questions at this point you would have for a next session, the roundtable. And once you write those, you can think about, okay, then what type of professional would I need to talk next? And yeah, and after that, we will talk plenary with everybody. So if you guys want, you can start already working on that as we are going to rush the final steps a bit. And that way we don't lose time waiting for the other team. So in your same templates that you filled in the bottom, you should have template 2. So in the case of Keystone, you would have it here, template 2.
We just do this on our own, right?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I did not explain that. Yes, indeed. So this is on your own. And Hannah, in the case that we had Julia back, of course, we will put you back in a breakout room with Julia. But I think for now, it's okay to do it on your own.
Hello, everyone. I guess Alicia already made some explanation on the template, so I will just do it briefly uh, for room 2. Basically, yeah, now I would ask you to go to the template 2, which is right below the template 1. And basically, just reflect on what you just discussed, the insight that you gathered from this brief conversation, reflecting on how would you approach your next steps then, and what questions you still have to pose, because I remind you that we have this round table, and then which professionals you would pose it to, so which people you would need to ask. We will end then with a super final wrap up where maybe some of you will share questions that they want to pose to the group itself of today. And I think for this, it should be fine to have some 5 to 10 minutes. That's to not be too late. So, as mentioned, indeed, uh, I hope you had all time to reflect a bit on what were your insights and what will be your next steps. So, does anybody want to share maybe some learnings from today, and even more importantly, want to pose even further questions to the group?
Maybe because I'm just curious, I would like to understand if any of you had an experience with a business angel and how does it work, and if you can share some insights, because for me it's a total almost new thing and I have no idea how you approach these type of donors.
Well, from room 1, I can say that we discussed the topic also in the same light. So asking if anybody had an experience, and it was not the case, but it is sparking a lot of interest, the possibility indeed. I think it's a lot about having people that are putting money on different ventures within your network, or networking in places where you can get in contact with them. And then to mix it a bit with the other topic that we talked in room 1, have a really clear, catchy and enthusiastic pitch. Because unless you have time to build the relationship with a person, it's gonna be someone you pitch to directly, like you would do in a networking event. So I can say that we did not have many new things to add in terms of the angel investor, but we did discuss a lot of, or we learned a lot from our own teams about the importance of having your story really clear to involve private partners for funding. So I don't know, how was it for you guys?
Well, we were not actually discussing this in our room, so that's why then when I saw Hannah putting this one in our shared part, I was like, okay, did you discover something that is amazing and worth sharing? No, but generally speaking, I think it was interesting to see that we are sharing a bit the same struggle connected with the next steps, not because necessarily we have the same type of obstacles, but just because understanding what is the partnership, or no, actually the governance that our project will have after the incubation, if we can talk it about it like this, with the designscape, is something that we are all like somehow concerned, and is directly connected also with the funds that we will potentially attract. So in perspective, something that can be interesting for me, I say, is to learn how this different model of governance can actually impact your project and the access to certain funds. And that's it.
Okay, anybody else wants to add something, or should we wrap it up?
Maybe just a practical question.
Yeah.
The links that you showed us in the presentation of the first part, I couldn't find them in the Miro board. Are you gonna share them with us, or
You couldn't find them in the Miro board.
can you guide
Any
me?
links that are written there?
Like when in the beginning when you presented us, where for example different crowdfunding platforms and these kind of
Yeah, so
in the very middle. Never mind. Yep. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
anyway, we will make we'll export also all the frames in Miro on a PDF to share them also afterwards.
Perfect.
So we will find a way. But thanks for the question. Okay, then time to wrap up and looking towards the roundtable. You want to take over, Alicia?
Yes, sure. So, okay, so we had the idea of making this this plenary part longer, but usually it's difficult to schedule actual discussion and conversation with people, so we run out of time. But it's nice that we have next week another session, and we are bringing in 2 guests. So we wanted to bring people from the side of life of investment, of coaching and mentoring people that are trying to go find investment or find business sustainability, and also entrepreneurs that went through the experience themselves. But we had a lot of, or we had some last minute, how you say that? I want to say something in Spanish, but we had some last minute
Delayed or cancellation. Yeah.
Cancellations. That's the word. Thank you. We had some cancellation with the entrepreneur side, but we're still bringing in 2 guests to really, we think is really interesting backgrounds. I have, Alberto, 2 frames on them. I think they should be there if you continue with the presentation.
Let's see.
No, yeah.
No. Let me go for them.
No, I think if you continue with the presentation, there should show.
Yeah.
I just saw that there should show all the Miro. I can do it if that's okay.
Maybe it's better. Yes. Sorry,
Yeah.
but I think this was.
1 second. Okay, so now you should see my screen.
Yeah.
Just bear with me because I have to go a lot of slides. Because I don't know why they created like that, but here it is. So we have Joachim Kim, I butchered the name, from Companion from Sweden, and they tag along those that are trying to put together a business, and they do counseling all over Sweden for starting, but also finding money. So that's really interesting to see what questions you could pose to that person. And also we have Jeff Alberghi, that is coming from, well, he's French, but he's coming from Spain, from the association Con Valores, and they are an incubator for entrepreneurs, and they focus on social inclusion and social innovation. And he has also experience with funding on European programs, etc., and coaching. So yeah, so don't miss it. It's next week, 7th of April at 5 again. Yeah, but we'll update you if there's any updates with the link of Zoom and those things.
Yeah, we will send you another invitation, the same as with the one for this one. So to also know a bit what are the numbers for that meeting. We hope they're going to be as good as today, because we were really happy to have all of you here.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me personally, it's been really interesting. I hope also for you. And I really thank you for your time and hope to see you next week.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
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 Bye.